The jobs they do are very hard, but it's our responsibility as the employer to make them feel seen and heard.
Welcome back to Next Gen by NuCare, a podcast for senior living providers looking for solutions to improve their business and take ideas from thought leaders across the industry. I'm Joel Moyer, the host, and I'm welcoming Lori Alford today from Avanti Senior Living. Lori is the founder and CEO of Avanti, which uses a technology-based caring approach to seniors across their 6 locations in Texas and Louisiana. Good morning, Lori. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Joel. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to talk about senior living and your experiences and where you're at now and how you see the future playing out as we're moving forward in pretty exciting times right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about your history and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, when I got into the business, senior housing, that is, I don't have some great story other than my parents said, you just graduated from college and now you need a job. And I just so happened to get one in a senior living company back in the 1990s. And I never left. I loved it. I've had the opportunity to sit in a lot of different positions. So I have different lenses, meaning I, started on the feasibility side, and I've done government relations, and I've done marketing, and I've done sales, and I've done operations, and now I've done development, and I've been on the ownership side. And so I've, worked in buildings, and I've also sat on, kind of the management side. So I see all the different lenses, and I think that's very unique.
Tell me a little bit more about what you see what are the biggest changes you've seen over the years in senior living?
Yeah, the customer. I would start there. The first one being the customer, and the second one being our team members who we employ. And so when it comes to the customer, I can remember early on in my career, these little old ladies, no one really ever wanted to live with us, but they were definitely younger, and it was, you didn't have to go outside marketing as much. They would just come walking through the door looking for a place to live. And a lot of times it was even the actual resident themselves coming with their daughter. Now they're a little older, they're a little frailer. And while we still haven't moved the needle where they want to necessarily live with us, we do face that stigma still. They definitely just are older, they're frailer, and but they still have different expectations. When I first got in the industry, we were dealing with a post-war, a depression resident, and so they would hoard the fruit that you would put out. They would hoard any leftover food. I remember walking into a resident room and seeing them having washed their Ziploc bags and hanging them up to dry. And a lot of that came from the time that they grew up. They had to hold on to everything because it was just a really hard, struggling time of the economy when they were growing up. Now you fast forward, and it seems like they're cultured, they know what they want, so their expectations are very different. It used to be that having the same meal over and over again, the expectations of our dining program and socialization, quote, activities there wasn't a lot to it. Now there is. They're expecting a better dining program. They're expecting more to our engagement program because they've been cultured, they've traveled, they're educated, they're just very, very different. And so that is something that's very different. And then you couple that with our employment pool, of which we have, 4 or 5 different generations now that we're employing. And you can just really see the difference. If you look at kind of the baby boomers that we employ, they're okay with sitting classroom style and learning and very structured and, don't buck the system. There's protocols, there's red tape, there's all of these different things. And then we fast forward right, to like this Generation Z and the millennials, and it's all about giving them purpose. It's, they want short spurts to learn. They're used to learning on a computer or a device versus paper and lectures. And that's very, very different than what we used to have. And so I think, the two things that I've seen that are very different in the industry are the people that we serve,
Yeah.
but then also the team members that we employ.
Yeah, my experience, in particular with the people we serve, um, I think people are finding options to stay at home longer, in-home care and things that didn't exist before. Um, my primary experience has been in memory care, and we used to have, as we said, a lot of pleasantly confused little old ladies that we served, and would serve them for several years, and then now, by the time we receive, they move in and they come into the community. Oftentimes, they have more sophisticated, complicated health issues, and more going on, more reasons that they have to move in, and um, have to come into a memory care community in particular. So, yeah, it's changed. I think there's probably more of a need for nursing services than there used to be to monitor those health issues. And then, as you said, the type of employee um, that we have serving the residents has evolved, and some of it's really neat. I took an investor through a property the other day, and the caregiver working in the memory care unit, was just approached us, and she was explaining how she's here for the residents and all she wants to do is put smiles on people's faces, and she's just really happy to be working here and appreciative of her position. And that, really makes you feel good to hear that, because that's not typically when you are in our office working with the challenges of our business. You don't always get to hear those good stories, and that people do appreciate it and are doing it for the right reason. So, yeah, the purposefulness of some of the younger people is really, it's heartwarming, but also is great, for our industry. I know some of the more businessy businesses, um, roll their eyes or get frustrated with that, but it's like, send them on over, bring them on in.
Mm. Yeah, I let me love on them, as I like to say.
Right, right, and let them love on our residents, and let
Yeah,
them find purpose in working with them. And um, the other thing that, more recent changes due to COVID with our employee base is that we're paying people more. At the time, we didn't want to pay that much more, but we had no choice because it wasn't really a position that was easy to recruit for in the middle of COVID. Um, but now you fast forward a few years, we're all trying to figure out how to pay for that more expensive workforce. But I know we're more appreciative of that higher level care team that can, make some decisions and be responsible at a different level, and have that, purpose driven, career path. So it's really nice. I'm, proud the wages we can pay versus just a few years ago, and can pay, I guess, is the key, because we kind of had to do it in order to survive. But we're all adapting and moving forward. And if you're not, then you're moving out, not moving forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very fair. I've always believed in paying top of market. You know, what I call them the impact makers, what the folks in the communities do that are actually doing the hands-on care to our residents. It's the hardest job in our entire sector. Yet it has the most opportunity to improve their wages and lifestyle. And so, one of the things I also subscribe to the thinking of is it's not just wages that, keep and attract good team members. While that's important, and again, I believe in paying top of market, I certainly don't, cut corners in that area. It's how do you pour into them, kind of love on them and make it feel special. A lot of times we don't know what's going on in their homes, and many of them live with, multiple families in their apartments or homes, and they have to have multiple jobs in order to make ends meet. And that comes with a different lifestyle. And I look at it as when they walk through the doors of Avanti, how are we making them feel? And part of that is feeling safe and their voices are heard and they're seen so that they love the time that they're spending in our communities. Because yeah, the jobs they do are very hard, but it's our responsibility as the employer to make them feel seen and heard.
Yeah, it really is. It's culture is everything, and yeah, you can pay, but if you don't give the people the support and the tools they need to do their jobs, at the most basic level, they're going to get frustrated. And we continue to try to figure out technology that helps our care team be more efficient and do their job at a higher level, but giving them tools to make decisions, tools to serve the residents in a different way that hasn't been available before, or not having to double document things or track things in several places. Um, and ultimately, they're used to now in their day-to-day lives incorporating technology to make things better, make it easier for them. And if you're not trying to do that for them, they're going to get frustrated and say, why, when I'm here at work, do I have to do it this way? When I'm at home, they can figure it out. Why can't we do the same at work? So yeah, giving people the support they need to be able to do all the good things they can do and truly focus on, you know, not just resident care, but caring for the residents. So yeah, it's pretty exciting to have that opportunity to see the industry continue to evolve, and how we care for people. Um, and there's also just a lot of change, as I'm sure you see, um, in the, on the provider side, on the the types of companies providing care and services. Ultimately, I would say ultimately it's a mom and pop industry. There's you and I and people doing this, and then there's other companies that have hundreds of facilities and serving multiple, a bunch of states and doing a lot of things. But when you really break it down, when I talk to people outside of the industry, I said it's a mom and pop industry. The average size of buildings is not 250 units. The average owner doesn't own, 50 facilities. Uh, so that's the beauty of our industry. There's a lot of people to connect with and a lot of collaboration. Um, Unlike other industries where it's a little more directly competitive. Okay, Lori, tell me a little bit about where you're at right now, with your work with Avanti.
Yeah, so we, started in 2013 and we developed 6 communities from the ground up. And recently on July 27th, we transacted where Ventas purchased 5 of our real estate assets and we stayed in to continue to manage them. So we're really excited about that. It presents a lot of opportunities. Um, with that, now we're able to manage for other capital providers. We're able to acquire, we're able to develop again. And so we're kind of in the Avanti 2.0 phase now.
Nice. That's very nice. So what region are you in? Just to,
We're primarily in the South, so we operate in Texas and Louisiana. I've operated in a lot of states throughout my career, but what I find is the states right now that are going to do well for us, are where I can say, we're going to go love on our team members and staff. And that tends to be in the South where that's a little bit more accepted. So,
no, I think it's amazing when people understand that it's not the same state to state. You have to be very deliberate in your growth. Um, we're in the process of acquiring 4 locations in Florida, Southern Florida, but I brought on someone who's my partner Heidi, who is on the board of the Florida Senior Living Association, has been operating for 25 plus years. So she knows the business directly in Florida, and we're partnering up, and it's an exciting opportunity for us to venture outside of the state of Wisconsin. And we've been looking for that opportunity for a while, so it's finally coming together. So we're excited to bring on some communities that have been, let's say, a little neglected for a few years. They're a little tired, but we have lots of capex money, a few $1 million, to rejuvenate them and also convert them to primarily memory care. So we're very excited about that opportunity. So yeah, we have about 20 buildings and 10 locations in Wisconsin right now. So we're excited for our next phase of
Yeah, that's
corporate
great.
health. Um,
Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing.
yeah. So tell me, where do you see the future of assisted living? How do you see your company evolving? I know you talked a little bit about management and growth and possible new development, but where do you see our industry evolving?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity that we can involve. Where I see the opportunities, I think it's a great time for our industry. For years, people have been talking about the silver hair tsunami that's coming. And I feel like we put the cart before the horse a little bit. People age one day at a time. So I think people got a little bit excited about the silver hair tsunami that's coming, but it's finally here. And while there's still the younger senior that is finally here, it's the kind of the party's just getting started. And so I think there's opportunities where we have the privilege of serving a lot of the older generation, but at the same time, that comes with we're going to have to look at our programs and our dining and truly hospitality and socialization and engagements and how we do it, because the senior that is here, they've said it publicly, we don't want your product. And I think if we really want to change that stigma, we have to change. And it's not putting new, kind of the lipstick on the pig. We have to vastly change what we are doing and how we look at it. And so the great thing about people like me and you is we've been in the business for a very long time. The more challenging part is we've been in the business for a long time. And so it's giving our brains the ability to think differently and respond and not have that, well, this is how I've always done it mentality, because we need to change and we need to be open to really receiving and hearing what that new consumer wants.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see the spectrum of care being provided, through both in a building, home type setting, but then even beyond the 4 walls of home, and the evolution of how people can adapt to their needs in the setting that they're at. And that's where, my view of it is the silver tsunami means that there's more people, but they're also going to look for alternative ways to live, places to live, settings to live in. My mother, who is a geriatric nurse practitioner, has been, in this business for 40 plus years, is in her late 70s and lives in a very unique apartment setup that provides care and services to those apartments that need care and services. My dad passed away last December. He needed care and services, so they moved in there. My mom doesn't need care and services. I assume she might want to move out at that point, but no, she likes her bridge club and meeting her friends for dinner, and all of those social activities are important to her. So she still living there in a very active lifestyle, and actually still teaches uh, nurse delegation classes and other things, and is very active in the business. But she lives in an assisted living community officially. But you'd walk in and you would think it was just a very nice condo complex. You know, walk-in closets and granite countertops and, all the things that she had before moving in are there. And I think, those kind of things, those type of amenities, and of course the pubs and pools and, outdoor um, spaces for grilling and, um, fire pits and all the things are wonderful additions to our industry. In addition to evolution on the care side, so that more complex care can be provided in those more active type settings. So it is very exciting to see that evolution, and I'm very confident that as an industry as a whole, we can meet those needs in ways that we're not even thinking of now, which is really exciting. Um, and then also being able to provide care and services to people in ways that in the past we may have had to, you know, discharge them to a nursing home or send them out for, urgent care or ER visits and things, that we can take care of those things now. And, physical therapy and all kinds of services being brought into their homes. And whether it's in our communities or more independent type settings, we're going to figure it out. And the consumer has demands that are different, that, like you said, than in the past. So we better adapt or get left behind. So yeah, it is pretty exciting. Um, so what are a couple of innovative things that you guys have going, either in your communities or things that you're looking to add in to your bag of tricks, so to speak?
Yeah, we have a couple things. The two things that really kind of come to mind, big, kind of really high level, are two things that I really enjoy. One is AI, and two is just the wellness component. And so in 2019, I had an aneurysm. And so I've had about a total of about 15 hours worth of brain surgery that's resulted in 2 pipeline stents in the nape of my brain. Hence, the little brain over here is a reminder of taking care of my brain because it's important. And my journey from that almost 6 years ago has been to take care of myself and my health. And I've given a lot of, kind of educated myself on a lot of different things. And now I pass that education on to my team. And so I'm a big proponent of movement and fitness. So we have a proprietary fitness program that's in our communities where our residents are doing yoga and HIIT and strength and spinning and all, circuit trail and all these things. And it's actually the most attended events in our building, and we do it for our assisted living side, and we do it for our memory care. So, yeah, that's something that's super great. And then the other thing we've just had a really big initiative for is AI. And so, how do we have a lot of documentation, but how are we tying it all together so that all our systems are talking to each other, and providing myself and my team the information that we need to make good decisions versus having to go search for information. And, everything is it's so fragmented, and having it all kind of in one stop and then overlaying AI so that it's telling us, it's looking for trends and themes and things that are missing is extraordinarily helpful. And it's helping to utilize my team's time a lot more effectively and efficiently because information's kind of starting to come to them instead of having to go search for it. And so I think those areas are just going to continue to propel for us personally, and it's going to expand and expand like little bubbles because each of those topics, they can create a bunch of little shiny squirrels that we can go to. So it's again, it's just a really exciting time because I feel like there's so much out there that can be
There really
done.
is. And, we all have been using, electronic health records of some sort for quite a while,
Yeah.
but they've in the past just been databases of information, like you said, that we had to go dig into and seek and look for trends and compare and contrast and see the effects of how a new medication has affected the daily life of someone in a positive or possibly negative way, or are they having more issues, less issues, all of those things, where if you can really pull that information and then hopefully as an aggregate we can start pulling information to get a little more predictive in our care and diagnosis and planning of best courses of action based on all of the tens and hundreds of thousands of residents that are being tracked in these electronic health record systems, because it's way more information than is in a standard medical record of someone. We're tracking their care hour by hour and medications and what time and any issues they had between those medication passes and taking vitals. And at such a high level, it'll be really exciting as you can gather that data and truly throw some red flags up before bad things happen, to truly head it off at the pass. One of the things that I'm a real proponent of is trying to figure out how to measure more um, vitals and health. And one of the biggest things that I get frustrated with is the lack of body temperature measurements. And so I live in the state of Wisconsin, and we have these huge dairy farms, and they have 10,000 cattle, and these farmers consider their cattle very valuable. So each of their cattle wear basically like a necklace that's measuring their body temperature. And so they can get indications if there's a couple degrees change in body temperature and find that cow to, figure out what's going on. They use it for breeding, but they also use it to see if somebody's sick, and they don't want one cow, not only that cow, but to get other cows sick as well. So, I had this aha moment when touring this farm, going, why aren't we doing that? We all know that body temperature is a leading indicator of problems, and sometimes before there's symptoms, there's a slight change, even with UTIs and things that people don't notice, but their body temperature changed a little bit. So then like, oh, well, they have symptoms, and then you take their temperature, like, whoa, wow, you're at 101 degrees. Of course there's a problem. Um, so, and now we have these, is it Aura rings and things that the average person is, there you go, tracking their, body temperature and getting a heads up if something's off. And, we have wearable devices and things with our residents, but that particular measurement, I think, is going to be a key plus as we move forward with our residents to try to, again, hopefully prevent emergency room visits, hospitalizations, visits to the doctor, if we're monitoring things on a more regular basis that don't even require someone to come to a nurse to take their temperature or blood pressure, whatever. If we can keep track of those things and people can just be more independent, and our team members can be focused on, again, putting smiles on residents' faces and keeping them active. And I love the physical fitness program that you have, because my mom was living at home for many years and helping take care of my dad, and her shoulders were bad, and and once she moved in, and then she's like, well, I'm doing some yoga and Tai Chi, and oh my gosh, I got range of motion back and my aches and pains are going away. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Mom,
Yeah, I
that's
love
so
that.
good.
I love that.
And
Yeah. I think there's opportunities in what I call proactive aging versus
yeah,
reactive.
yeah,
And so, some of it too is it's also the consumer. 20 years ago, the consumer, even us, we didn't live on our phones the way that we live on them. And so
Yeah.
society as a whole is helping to evolve a lot of this thinking and making it more open to the adaptability of utilizing devices for tracking, and it's not stigma. I mean, I remember when my dad got a debit card and he was like, I'm never using a debit card. They're going to steal all my money out of the debit card. I'm going to use checks forever. And then he never uses checks. And so it's just a mind shift. And I think we're going to get there. And that's what makes it really exciting.
Yeah. Well, I chuckle because there's a lot of people who do the morning phone call to their parent that's living alone. And they're calling to see if they're okay, if they're alive still, and don't really have anything to say. And the parent knows why they're calling, and it's annoying. And like, well, why didn't you answer your phone? Well, I left the house, like I'm not here. I'm busy. I have a life, I'm doing things. And if you can, use technology to the point where you don't have to bother someone, that's, one end on the very independent side. But we don't have to ask residents to come to the vital station once a week to take their vitals, because they can do it in their room on their own in a private setting. The team members still get the care team still gets the information, but most of the time it's absolutely fine. There's no reason to alert them or make them go out of their way. So if you can do those things without interrupting their day and make them feel like they're maintaining more independence because they're not having to go, sit in the nurse's office or wait in line somewhere to get their vitals done because they're required to do it. And so, yeah, it's, the ongoing evolution of the little things use of technology. But then, as it continues to grow, and truly integrate in, and then all of the different cool new IT devices and all of these things will continue to integrate with each other. So I call it one source of truth. So you're not having to log in 7 different places to track everything. And that's what's exciting. Some of the, more innovative providers and medical records companies are realizing that they can be that, that hub of information. And that's what we need as providers to make our lives a little easier, and using AI to
you instead of you to go look for it.
Exactly. So, well, Lori, I truly appreciate taking the time today. I wish you the best. It sounds like you have a lot of exciting things going on, new adventures with Avanti 2.0.
Yeah,
thank you. All about it. I do want to talk to you a little bit more about the physical fitness aspect that you guys are using, and because that's needed everywhere. Like you said, whether you're doing memory care or very independent living.
Yep, we do it in our memory care as well. It's pretty structured. We've refined it for 10 years, and it's amazing in the memory care. It really helps with sundowning and food digestive and your energy level instead of the spikes and valleys, which ultimately helps with behavior. So I'd love to have a conversation with you about that. See how we can help you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I truly appreciate that, Lori. And again, thank you for taking the time today to just share your story and talk a little bit about what you guys have going in senior living.
Awesome, thanks.
You bet.